Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We're gonna start the meeting at 5:00 p.m. Claire, and start with a moment of silence, followed by the pledge. The flag is. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was almost gonna say flags.
I was gonna say. All right, Claire, we're open for public comment. If you want to read the statement, please do.
Public comment periods will be held at the beginning of the scheduled meeting and limited to a maximum of 30 minutes. Each person desiring to speak shall clearly state their name and will have a maximum of 3 minutes to make his or her remarks. To avoid repetition, groups of individuals who expect to have the same or similar comments are encouraged to select a spokesperson to speak on their behalf. Public comment is not intended to require the board to answer any impromptu questions. The board should refrain from engaging in dialogue except to the extent necessary to clarify the speaker's position. The board shall not entertain questions from the audience, and discussions between speakers and members of the audience shall be prohibited. Speakers shall maintain proper decorum and shall make their comments in a civil manner. Personal attacks and use of obscene and profane language are prohibited. Speaker comments should be limited to subjects that are within the board's jurisdiction. Action on items brought up during the public comment period will be at the discretion of the board.
Okay, speaker number one.
Hello, board and staff.
Hello.
I'm not sure this is working, but you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Rebecca Brock, 5220 Christian Light Road. I accept the results, I accept the review and the results of the Harney County Board of Elections 2024 general elections. It appears to have been a fair and accurate tally of the voters' wishes, even with the recent recounts. While the results are not what I had hoped for, I believe them. There were minor infractions of boundaries at the polls, procedures, and differing judges' verbal explanations of processes. But overall, I believe the judges and poll workers did an excellent job of producing an arena for Harnett voters to come and cast their ballots. I hope that is conveyed to them. My overall concern from this election is about registering folks to vote. Voting is very complicated in North Carolina, especially if you're not a card-carrying driver's license person. The new laws serve to tighten restrictions on voters who do not have such, and even would get tighter if the constitutional amendment is passed. I would urge the board and administration to make voter registration education a priority locally and statewide. I applaud the staff's previous efforts to go out to the nursing homes and high schools. Really do, those two things were great, to get voters registered in advance and at regular intervals. I encourage you to continue that effort. Some food for thought. Make advanced site preparations for each polling location such that the 50-foot perimeter and curbside voting locations could be shown on a photograph listed on the website, as was previously done before. Those 50-foot parameters are no longer on the new website, so I was disappointed about that. I suggest a review of curbside voter flow, the pattern be done by the board, before the election, in conjunction with staff and the judges, as well as the county's road traffic consultant, because I think some flow could be better served. You know what I'm talking about. It could be better served. Standardized observer check-in and check-out procedures by the county. Every chief judge had different procedures in the 4 early voting polls, as well as during every 13 poll. I didn't get to all 13 polls on election day, but everyone had a different check-in and check-out procedure suggest that you guys make that a more standardized process. Also, I do believe the state should allow the Board of Election members to, and encourage them to go to the polling site so that they can see what's going on at the polls. So I don't know if you have any sway, pull, or whatever, but I would absolutely ask the NCSBE to make that. Am I done? Well, geez, okay. Thank you very much. I think that covers it.
Okay, speaker number 2.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. Roger Farina from Barbecue. I am also the North Carolina GOP Congressional District Chairman. I would like to bring up, I agree with everything that Rebecca said. So I think we're kind of in line with everything that she said about what was going on with this election. One of the problems that I have is the precincts that we have developed right now. Right now, Barbecue Precinct is the 3rd overall on turnout and getting out to vote in the entire state. There's 2,659 voting precincts in North Carolina, and Barbecue Precinct, with no incorporated township, with no incorporated city, was 3rd overall in the amount of people to go out to vote. I think voting on election day it took an extra an hour and a half after the polls closed. At one point, when Congressman Knott came out to shake hands, we shook 303 hands in line. That's just way too many. I think Claire and I have discussed this before, but I think there used to be 20 or 22 polling locations in the county some years ago, and I think we need to get back to that. Polling at the schools, I think, is just a bad idea. Out by us, talking with Commissioner Nickel, maybe putting the polling location at the old Ben Haven school. That could be a good place to go instead of having it at our high school. With us having say-so at the Y, with us having input with the Y, county funds go there. We may be able to do it at the Y. They built a new Ben Haven Fire Department, so we could probably maybe do it at the old Ben Haven Fire Department, which I think is where I voted when I first got here 20 years ago. The other thing that I've heard is that redistricting the precincts is based on the decennial census, which I'm not really sure. I've been trying to talk to Senator Bergen and Joe Pike, Representative Pike, and trying to find where that's written and whether the redesignating of the precincts is tied to decennial census stuff. The thing is I would say is that our precincts are not tied to any elected candidate, any elected office, either at the commissioner level, Board of Elections, the State House, State Senate. And in fact, I think if we were to sit down and re-precinct our county, we could probably put them in line in a much better fashion with their representation. So,
Okay,
thanks. I could go on.
Good evening, Dan Vasquez. I wanted to mention a couple things again, also echo what Rebecca said. I appreciate her making her comments, particularly on the board visiting the sites. I recognize that, there's always an opportunity for things to go sideways when we're interacting with the public, but to me, it is extremely important that the board be out there looking at what's happening on the ground, seeing what it looks like, particularly as I know, and you all know, that you are going to be looking at, what needs to be addressed in respect to the size of the precincts and maybe realigning them. Roger mentioned how many precincts there are in North Carolina and that Barbecue ranked 3rd, but even still, a concern in regard to Western Harnett is a lot of the turnout was during early voting. So even if you change the precinct, you're still going to have a ton of people coming out for early voting in Western Harnett. So I don't know if that means we need another site, 2 sites out in Western Harnett for early voting. I hate to think of that because it's really primarily on just a few days. And to set up a whole nother site just for a couple of days that are really heavy, I'm not sure. So I know you have your work cut out for you in trying to reorganize the precincts. It would be helpful, I know that Claire particularly has a lot of experience on what's been looked at before on, as the board's looked at trying to rearrange that. I think it would be very helpful if that were part of what's discussed for the benefit of everybody. I don't know if that can happen today. It would be helpful because I know you're gonna start diving into it in January. But I really think there's gonna be a lot of work needed to make sure that we get the precincts realigned. And I know there's a lot of conditions that have to be met for that. So the more that we can all work together to help the voters have a better process, a smooth process during the voting, appreciate it. And it helps the more information that we all have up front.
Thank you. Okay, Claire. All right, you beat your time today.
Can I go again?
So the first item we have are to approve the minutes from November 14th and November 15th. You have a copy of them from you. These are the same that were also emailed. If you need a minute to review them, you may, but once you're satisfied, a motion to approve would be in order. And I'll leave it up to the board if you want to make this one motion to approve both, that's fine, or if you want to take them separately, that's fine as well.
I move to approve both at the same time.
A second.
All in favor? Oh, any discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, so these are the two to be signed.
It's not naked.
So the first item was just election updates. I know in the agenda I had, if any, but I do have a couple of updates. So the election protest that we heard the other day is going to be appealed to the state board. Chris Littell with the legal department is working to get the video transcribed so that we can submit that to the state board with the appeal paperwork. So as far as this board is concerned, there's no further action to take at this time. I have not heard a date of when the board is going to hear the protests, but as soon as I get that information, I'll forward that to everybody.
And it's just with regards to that one voter.
Correct. And that one voter record was corrected, so we'll see how the state handles that. The other update is just that we are going to do our partial hand-eye count tomorrow, December 4th at 8:30. It will be here in the RCL, but this room is booked, so we're going to be across the hall over at the library in their downstairs classroom. So we're going to have signs out for that. The precinct that was selected was Election Day Barbecue. So it's 1676 ballots. It's not the biggest one, but we do have 2 teams, so that'll be about 800 a team. So hopefully it'll only take a few hours to complete that count tomorrow. And like I mentioned in the email, and then per the number memo, we need to make sure we have a quorum or at least one of each party board member there throughout the day. And I think most everybody was available. I know you said you had some work stuff.
Well, I have meetings, but I'm gonna get here in the morning and hopefully
I'm gonna be here in the morning.
I'll be here.
Okay.
And then I, always come back after.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think it only takes a couple hours, so hopefully it won't be too long.
Yeah, they're pretty fast.
It starts at 8:30.
Huh? Huh?
Starting at 8:30.
It's gonna start at 8:30, so
Okay.
we'll be here at 8, get everything set up and ready to go, and then, we'll start at 8:30.
You had two
Two
teams.
teams, yes. We have to have teams of 4 for this, so we have 8 people coming tomorrow. So for the simple hand-eye, we have to have 3, and then we rotate between the 2, but for the partial count, we have to have 4. We have to have 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats on each team. So we have to have an extra person. Yeah. It's in the number memo too, so we got that covered. We're good. Those are all the updates I had. Unless there's any other questions, our next item was for Brent to hopefully give us an update.
That's it.
I have a question.
Okay?
In one of our minutes, it was mentioned that, I think on the 15th, it was mentioned that Mr. Bell thanked everyone for a smooth election. Ms. Fenderson noted that she wants to send out a thank you to all election workers, and an appreciation event is being planned. What's the status of both of those things?
So I was gonna address, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Go
We
ahead.
don't have a date set yet simply because we haven't gotten done with all the counting yet. But as soon as we get that information, I'll forward it to everybody. But hopefully we can get it done before Christmas. And we will send a message out to all the election workers. We have them sign up through the group so they can push text messages out to them. And then for those that we know don't text, we'll call them or send that letter out. But we haven't got that planned out yet.
Okay,
And
well,
what
job
about
observed.
the electronic billboard?
I haven't gotten those done yet either, but we're gonna get them.
Didn't we do the paper last time?
I don't think we did the paper because that one was an extra charge to it, but I can still reach out to them and see if we can stick something in there.
So that's gonna be all the poll workers that we had through
For
the
the-
17 days.
Yes.
Okay.
And then
Everybody
some.
signed up.
And then some.
And then even those from the primary that may have worked the primary but didn't work this election.
And have there been any ideas of the event, appreciation event? Yes.
So what we had done in the past was we just, we reserved a space, which was the commons area then, but we're gonna see if the commons area or the space is available. And then what we have done in the past is just order food and kind of make it more of a social hour where we can, just talk and get along. We still have a lot of Harnett County swag and things, little giveaways that we're gonna plan to have as well. But again, like I said, with all the recounts and everything, I've not had a chance to sit there and go through my budget and get it planned out. But it is something that we're gonna try to do before Christmas, if at all possible.
Okay,
We
you'll
got
keep us
county
posted on
manager
that?
and assistant in here.
Yeah, I know.
We need some
Right.
extra coins.
That was what I was gonna talk about.
Mhm.
Because I tell you, I've said this before so many times, they have done an extraordinary job with this election. So, but we're gonna have that county manager that maybe, it's a good thing.
Okay, anyone else?
Thank you.
All right, Brent, you have the floor.
All right. Here comes Santa Claus.
So maybe the Grinch when I'm done here. Yes, so we're in the middle of our capital improvement process. We've gone through the document's been released to the board. And so in that document, it has, again, the project for a new building for the Board of Elections. But it is an unfunded project at this point. We have not moved it into the funding area based on other projects that we're currently working on in the county. So they'll review that, and obviously the Board of Commissioners can make a change with regards to that status. That's where I put it based on other priorities that we have. So it's a process. We talk about the project, we talk about potential costs, and look at timing based on other projects that we might be able to consider. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
I think that it's still something that is a known need, and we're trying to figure out how we fit it in and get funded in the future. So that's really where we're at with the project at this point. The good news is we have, I think, made enough investigation to be able to look at a future move from the space that you're in now to another county space that we believe we have enough room to be able to make it a better situation for the Board of Elections and the staff there. And I'm gonna let Mike Morrow, Assistant County Manager, come up. He's working with the various parties that are in the building and making sure to have diagnose enough space that we can make this transition for you. So we have identified some other departments that maybe would move over to your building. Now, eventually, there's some issues related to the building where you're in now. That space may be needed for a future water treatment project. So a lot of moving pieces, but I'll let Mike come forward and talk.
Excuse me, before you leave, I have a question.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about, we've been in the talking phase of new facilities, and each year, it seems like that's the only status we're at, is just talking about it. How do we make the next move to get into an area where it's going to be funded? What do we have to say to the commissioners? What type of information do they want?
Right now, it's very clear that the only way we would fund a new building for Board of Elections would be the issue of bond. We don't have any other funding source for that level of expense for a building. We're getting ready to issue around $10 million worth of bonds in order to do an animal shelter, which we're busting at the seams related to an animal shelter. And so that is a higher priority project right now. And trying to be able to do these projects without raising the tax levy at the same time. And so that restricts how many projects we can have going at a particular time, how much bonding we can issue. On top of it, we have $85.5 million expense related to a new middle school that's in the process of being built. And so all of those pressures related to how much we borrow without raising the tax levy is what the Board of Commissioners is looking at. So we've got to kind of clear the projects that are ahead of you right now before we can talk about actually doing action related to this project.
Well, just as an observation, this last election cycle that we had, we hung on by our fingertips doing what we had to do. We've done an adequate job. The county population is exploding, and of course that means that we're going to have a harder challenge the next election cycle. These things are not going to go away. They have to be addressed. And to me, the way it looks, it's a 2, 3, 4 year project. I don't know if we can last that long.
Well, and I agree that that's a concern, and I understand your desire and need, your opinion based on what you see on a regular basis doing this work, the need. But right now, our best solution is to find the space that's available to hopefully help that situation for the near term and maybe the long term, depending on what the space that's available, be able to make it better for you. It may not be as good as a new building purposely built for your needs would be, but I think it can be better. And so that's really what we're going to try to give you is a better situation than what you have.
Mr. Trout, what is the possibility of getting some grant or some funding help from either the state or the federal government, since we do partner with them in a lot of ways?
Sure.
Is there any way that we have?
There's nothing specific that the state has as an annual grant program or anything like that as it relates to Board of Elections specific items. We would have to look at going to get a certain specified grant from a legislator. They would have to determine that there be a specific funding dedicated to a project such as this. And right now, those types of projects are, they were better over the last 2 or 3 years, but now with things that have happened with that are on the western side. We're trying to curb our expectations on what we're going to receive for grants that we've received in the past for projects. Because there's a large expense that they have, they're tightening things down as to what's going to be available. We have no idea, we won't know until the leadership of the General Assembly determines their budget as to what possible amount of funding we could receive. Now, we can list our projects, and we do that, and that'll be part of our legislative priorities that the Board of Commissioners sets. But we know that it's going to be a hard ask, and we need to, I think, keep in mind or lower our expectations a little bit on what type of funding we may receive for the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, just as a follow-up on that, are our representatives in Raleigh aware of our situation with our Board of Election Department? Any other?
Yeah, I would say probably not specifically all. I don't know that I briefed them on a specific project. They've seen what our CIP is, but I don't know if they're aware of our specific needs related to this department. But that's easily remedied. I can make sure that occurs this year.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I wish I had a thought about this during this election, past election, but maybe we should invite all of the commissioners to the office on election night
They won't
and
fit.
see how, it's virtually impossible.
I know.
So when do you think the quote-unquote building will be ready for us? Oh,
That's what Mike's
I come
gonna-
talk to you about it.
Yeah,
turn,
Mike's gonna talk about
My
a
turn.
possible solution.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So, our general services building, which is that direction. We have identified a couple of spaces in the back part of the building that actually have indoor-outdoor access through a roll-up garage door. That would be available for secure equipment and it would also house all the staff. So you would have all the staff in one location. And yes, we would use the old building for staff that would be relocated to, from that building to the Board of Elections building. Claire, did you share any of that information that was?
I think I've spoken to them individually every now and then about possibly moving to that building, because I told you before that there was other departments in there. They have a Bell Academy and some other groups that use that space, so they're aware that that was a potential location.
So, to give you a little background, Central Carolina Wake Enterprises and Bell Academy, which is a conglomerate of several different organizations, have space in this building. Central Carolina's been occupying 4 spaces that are very, very large. They've identified that as part of what they have going on, they don't need 2 of those spaces. And that space is probably as big as this room that we're in. So it's very large and secure. So that was the goal. Having Board of Elections and all of their equipment and all of their staff in this particular building, the lobby is about, would you say it's double the size of the one you have now?
The lobby, yeah.
Yeah, and the parking lot's double the size as well. So you would have that in combination. And if we needed to, we'd have any staff that would be required to park in front of the building during busy times for elections, park in the back. There's plenty of parking in the back of the building as well. So what we're trying to identify, and by the first of the year, we should at least have the storage space information locked down, and we'll have the office space information locked down. My goal is by spring to have everything moved based on, measurements and then have everything moved and ready for the new occupants to take over the Board of Election building. So that's the goal and the thought process at this moment in time.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I mean, this is,
So there will be other other like entities in this building with
Correct.
the Board of Elections.
Correct, you'll have facilities, so facilities will remain in this building because their big wood shop and all of that sort of stuff is there. General Services Administration is in this building. Solid waste and fleet would relocate to Board of Elections. So that would free up that space, office space. And probably,
General services.
no, capital, Chris, you would
Okay.
go. The
So-
capital projects.
So would the Board of Elections be physically separated from those other departments? My concern is that a lot of what they deal with is sensitive material and you don't wanna have many, you wanna have the Board of Elections people being able to access it, but you don't want these other people and.
Well, they would have secure locked off offices if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, but.
They wouldn't be, in the office environment, I don't believe that, they're county employees as well. I mean, any county employee can walk through the county buildings, so.
So like your ballots and
And the
Yeah.
storage area in the back they're rooms, they're like classrooms settings, unless they remodel.
Well-
Right now, they're set up like classroom settings, so those doors can be locked and have key card access.
Alright, so,
But-
I guess my concern is Shannon and Claire are talking about a problem with a voter, and then, and they say somebody's name, and then there's just a random county employee walking by. That's my concern about having other county employees, other than elections workers, being able to access all of that, because we do have to guard voter privacy, and I think it puts a big burden on the election workers. Now they're in their own building, they're in their own space, they don't have to worry about anybody, just hearing them talk about what they're doing.
They just have to be cognizant of who's in the surrounding area. I
One of
mean,
the other
that could happen in
concerns-
here as well. I mean, if somebody was having a conversation, the door was open, and you walk by, you could hear
But
it.
we don't do,
But you could.
yeah.
yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
talking about the elections workers, now that, it sounds like this move is really for y'all's convenience as opposed to anything to
Well,
really help
no, the
us.
opportunity to have a much larger space, much larger secure space, and give them the opportunity to have a bigger lobby, a bigger parking lot, bigger access in the interim until your project goes through is a win for everybody.
Is there any way to have a little construction to kind of, I've been by the building but not on the inside, so is there any
I
way
think there's
that?
some possibility with facilities being there that we can make some alterations to the building to make it more secure. Because the way it is now, the warehouse is almost in two halves. So it's like facilities uses this half and ARC uses that half. And so I think there is some potential to make some modifications
It would be
to make
minor
it
at
more
best.
secure, but.
You could easily, if you needed a door up, put in two doors to block everybody in, it wouldn't be a problem.
For example, the front office area where the offices are is a circle, almost like our office is now. And so you could maybe put a door and separate it where it's two halves of a circle as opposed to a complete roundabout circle. So there's some potential.
Cause
and
when we
just-
go in the office, the building now, it's somewhat secure because someone has to let you in the back and then there's the glass there.
Yeah, we spent a lot of money for improvements in security there, and it sounds like there's not gonna be any of that back in there.
When you started.
No, there will be security.
Yeah, they have cameras. and
There's
stuff
cameras
like
all over that building, and it'll have strike locks, and we'll make sure all of that is monitored as well for access.
When you're talking about some modification, how about expandability? If we need more space, if that's not adequate, could we?
Not at this.
We have to wait for another move maybe and acquire, more of the building, or,
So,
And handicap accessibility,
I'm sorry,
handicap accessibility.
handicap stuff, yeah.
the building is handicap accessible, it's ADA compliant.
And Claire, drive up voting, space for
Yeah,
that.
so I think at this point, like I said, they're still putting the pieces of the puzzle together. This may not be a solution for voting. So we may still have to do voting at the commons area, but this would bring our office and
Together.
the warehouse into one roof.
Right.
I don't know that building would be usable as it is now for, early voting.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
No,
because the only large enough space to do early voting is towards the back of the building.
Yeah.
You would be putting people all the way through your office area.
So you still lighting stuff?
So we would still
People
have to
would be
do a
back.
satellite location for early voting.
It doesn't really,
Yeah.
it doesn't really get us a whole lot, but I mean, what, you know.
It's kind of what we've been doing all these years. It's better than what we have currently. It will be a huge improvement, but it's still not ideal. But it's something that I think could work for now until they can get the CIP process pushed through and actually build something for us. So it's not, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say it's not ideal, but it is definitely, if what we can
It's
do
not
what we can do,
long-term.
it would be a big improvement to what we currently have.
What I would suggest is that maybe when your next meetings, that you recess, go down, take a look at the building. We can walk you through the space. We'll show you what would be
Well, we could do
Board of
that today.
Elections space.
You're here.
Huh?
We can do it today, right? We're all here.
I don't have keys.
Oh,
Sorry.
Well, what may be better, instead of doing it during a board meeting, they can come like in
We could-
groups of two individually
Yeah, we
during
can
the
early.
day, that way
Yeah.
it's not
Or we
at
could do it
night.
before a meeting. I mean, we
Yeah.
could meet over there at 4:30 if you wanted to.
Yeah,
How about tomorrow after our recount?
except
I'm available.
you guys are available, I'm available.
shoot, I may have a meeting.
Wednesday nights, church
We need,
nights.
we need a little
8:30,
more
you think
time
we'll be done
if we're
by?
gonna do that as a group. We can
I
do
would
this
say-
Tomorrow, I think.
Well, you-
Everybody
Yeah, let's
might
just
not be-
plan. a
We could
feature.
just plan to do like at a set time, like 2 or something, I mean, I don't, 1,600 ballots, I don't think will take us a few hours to do.
What's
But
the few
I
hours?
can't give it a set time, so if they were available and could do, like, just sometime after lunch, I mean, that's entirely up to you guys and their schedules.
Is the entire board gonna be able to be there?
See, I think,
You'd have to be careful about that.
Yeah, you guys could be there together, but you could not discuss
Talk.
any
Right,
business or any
right.
election-related topics. Because as soon as you start talking, then it becomes a meeting, but you're just there to view the building and
Right.
leave. That would be kind of like our election conferences.
We can't be picking out our offices.
well, we'll get with you on,
I think it'll be easier to understand why we feel this will be beneficial. It may not be the best, but I think it can be beneficial to the organization to make this move. We know what you have now is not working very well. So what we're trying to do is find a better solution. And if it could make it even 15 or 20% better for everybody, that's an improvement, especially when you may be talking about 2 or 3 years at least before we're able to do something better. And that's I think best case scenario.
so,
If we can make it better for the short term, I think that's something we need to pursue, and that's what we're trying to do.
right,
So your capital improvement plans, that what you're talking about, CIP?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know we have the dog pound, animal shelter. Where do we actually land in that list of, where are we?
Right now, there are no other buildings besides yours that are proposed within the next 10 to 15 years probably, as we looked at the facilities improvement plan.
Okay. Does that mean we maybe be there for that length of time, or could it be sooner?
and that was my question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Is-
I don't know that, I can't really answer that question. A lot of it depends on how the board is looking at how aggressive they want to be in putting money towards this project.
Because my fear is, and yeah, we do need to move because what's there is just not working. But once we get in there, then it's like, oh, they're good, they're comfortable, they're happy,
Well,
and
I mean,
the money
and I
is
think-
not considered
I
any
think
longer.
right now, I would say that's something that we need to come to the Board of Commissioners and express your issues and ask them, when do you think we can expect something like this?
So we all get 3 minutes?
5, you get 5 minutes.
Five.
Oh, 5.
Okay.
But I really, I mean, right now, I can't give you a year as
Yeah.
to when this might happen. Because I would say we've got at least 3 years that we'll need to pay on the money that we've got. We just went through a process with our bond attorney, or excuse me, our bond financial person that explained where we're at. And we can do this, and we've got to wait a little while. Some of the bonds have to be paid off before we can issue the next bond. So, and I don't know that we don't even have a budget number for this building.
No.
So, that's probably the next thing in the near future that we'll have to do, is get somebody to give us a budget number. You know, even taking, typical square footage cost and looking at the size that the building would need to be. And, you know, and then we go back to the facilities improvement plan, that was, the assessment that was done, had a new health department building built. And then after, that's complete, that there would be space available in where the current health department is, which would be where the Board of Elections would move to. So that's what they identified as a long-term facilities plan for our county. So if we're looking at that kind of a building and when it would take, that's a probably $45 to $50 million project. And so that puts it even further out before that building would happen, before their space would become available. So. But generally, when I look at our buildings that we have, since this building was built and the other buildings in the condition they're in, the only other buildings that have even been talked about are renovating the top floor of the courthouse into half of that building. The top floor is not even converted, it's simply a storage area. The other was the possibility of another building similar to the tax department and register of deeds building as an additional add-on, which would allow space for more attorneys, that type of thing. So those are the only building projects that we have that are even considered in our plan, other than potentially another addition to social services department. So what I'm getting at is there are a limited number of building needs that we've identified as we look at 20 to 30 years from now. It's really a limited number. So you're in the mix and all that, just figuring out the priority.
I have one question.
Yeah.
In the, over at the Commons area, some people have mentioned to me that there's a couple of commercial renters in the, I guess it's the Human Resources Building, or to the right, if you're facing the Commons Hall area, building on the right, is that, I don't know the name of the building, but I heard that there was some office space available there, and then we also had, the county had a couple of renters in there that could possibly be relocated. That would be something.
In which building? In these buildings over here?
Yes.
No, we have no commercial renters. There are no commercial renters in the health department or social services buildings.
Okay, well, that's misinformation. Thank you.
We're using every bit of the space in the social services and health
All right.
department. All by staff.
And that top part was complete. One time you mentioned maybe the top part of social services.
Yeah,
And I
that
saw
would
they
be,
were doing some work on
right, that would be the potential location that Board of Elections was talked about. Also in the Department of Aging area next to where the Commons is, was another location that could be considered. But all of that is off the table until a new health department building would be built.
Well, Claire can show you the numbers of the voters we had this election, right?
Yeah.
All right,
All right, well, we look forward to it.
thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
You can go from there.
Thank you, Joe.
I have another meeting to go to, so I apologize, I have to leave, I got 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Take care, all.
Thank you, thank you much.
All
I
right.
know on the agenda it does say closed session if necessary, but we don't need a closed session for anything. So unless there's any other questions?
How are we going to view this site? What's the plan?
Yeah,
Or what are your thoughts?
I think we need to have them set aside a day and a time. We all meet and we all see it together.
Perhaps after the holidays.
We don't have to talk about, huh?
Can we do it
No, that's
next
fine.
week? We've got a schedule. We can have it.
Yeah, and we could do that.
Okay.
That to me would make more sense.
Well, our next meeting is January 7th at 5, so if we wanted to, we can meet there at
At
4:30.
4:30.
Do a walkthrough, view the building, and then come back here for the meeting at 5.
Well, from what?
Is 4:30 enough time? Like,
Yeah.
From what we
It's
just
right
heard,
here.
from what we just heard with this gentleman, the decisions are gonna be made by that time. They're moving forward, they're looking for taking our office space over, and we're not gonna have much input. We're losing our leverage if it's gonna be after the holidays.
Honestly, we really don't have any leverage. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. and-
Yeah. I mean, like I said, the office is pretty much, I mean, it's a county building. So anytime that you guys are available, and they're available, we can tour it. And that's why I suggested doing individually, because, I mean, I can take you over there, you know, 1 or 2 at a time and just kind of walk through.
Why don't you
If you'd rather
schedule
do
2
it-
times
That would be
and
fine.
you will walk us through and then we'll
Yeah.
do one or the other.
Yeah, and then like I said, even tomorrow, since we're gonna be here, if you guys are available after the hand count, we can head over there too.
but you don't know what time.
I don't know what time Brett and Mike are there, but I mean, I'm familiar with the building, I can show you some of the spaces and then just
Do you
give
have a
them
key? Do we need a key to get in?
Not during the day.
They'll be open.
Yeah, during the day, it's open and facilities is there and we can view it and I can just let them know. I
Well,
can call up to Brent and Mike and say, hey, we're done with the recount, we're gonna head over there, and if they're available, they can meet us over there.
I'd like to do that, I'll be available.
Okay?
I can try, but I have meetings and I ain't losing no coins.
Yeah.
Looked at a building that they
And I can get a
talking
floor
about for
plan
years.
and send the floor plan to everybody as well, so that you at least have the floor plan to look at as in addition.
As far as the square footage increase that we're gonna get, do we know that number?
I do not know the number, what the square footage is, because I don't know the measurements of the rooms, but it is definitely a lot larger than what we're in now.
And you know, he kind of made me nervous when he said the room is as big as this, like that was like real big. I'm like, what you have is
What
probably
we have
big
now
as
is about the
this.
size of-
So yeah, I was gonna say, I think our whole building could probably fit in this room.
Yeah.
And I started to say, do you mean with the little foldaways open? Cause
Yeah.
this ain't that.
This ain't big enough.
Yeah, we really need a place so we can have some autonomy. Sharing a space with other departments, like you mentioned. Someone passing through coming, because we have so much
Y'all have to
that
build
we
out
have to keep.
something.
It's not ideal. It's not. But like I said, I think there's modifications that can be done to make it work. Especially with like the back storage area. You know, they're walled up rooms and they have doors that can be locked and even have the key swipe so we know who's entering those areas. The office space in the front, again, there could be doors added to the hallways to divide that circle into 2 halves so that the facilities has this half and we have this half to keep those, the staff kind of separate. But again, it's not gonna be ideal, it's just gonna be better than what we have now.
It's triage.
Until we can move, yeah, until we move
It's-
somewhere.
it's-
Everywhere we've ever moved has
You
always
know
been
what
better
happens
than
when
the
you
last
move in,
place
you're
we've
good.
been in.
Money goes somewhere
Yeah.
else.
I agree with you on that. That first place, the
I-
living cost.
No, you said that we would have all.
I do think that we need to emphasize to them that they need to work with Claire to make the space what she needs as opposed to them telling her,
Well, I
this
would
is what
hope,
you have.
yeah.
Well, how about we consult and ask our elected officials at the state level? Both of them live here.
Let's invite him to a meeting.
It should be
Yeah,
done.
most of them are residents of Harnett County.
And I do know, I know you were asking about representatives knowing about our needs. I do know that there are several that are very much aware of our facility needs. I
But
know
that's been
Bergen is
years.
one, Kenny is one, and they're very much aware that we need
So
a
that's been,
facility.
It's
They were
been-
aware of the use, of the need for porta potties.
Penny.
no.
Tony made that
Pike,
very.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Pike, Penny,
yeah,
and,
he's been to our office to file,
Bergen.
so they're aware that we are in need of space.
Well,
They
next,
should be more
next
concerned
nice size
because they're the
election.
ones that get the benefit of the
they
election.
sure do.
yeah. So, next election, I know they're gonna be kind of small, but one with some size to it. They need to come on in there at night when when the people are walking through and see what you guys deal with.
Yeah, I agree.
For those that don't show up, they might not be that interested. All right.
Any other questions? So our next meeting is January 7th at 5. So we're not gonna do meeting, we're not meeting early. We'll just see the facility on our times, on y'all's time schedule.
You're gonna notify us about the event.
Yes, as soon as we get something planned, I'll send an email out to everybody. Because I will certainly want you guys to be there as well.
Claire, excuse me. The building that we have in question is where we did our recounts and things about 6 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
If you remember, I don't even remember what recount it was, but if you remember, we were in that kitchen area. We used to have our machines in that building
Right.
a long time ago, and we did a recount in the kitchen area. So, I mean, that tells you just how big their kitchen is. We did a recount in their kitchen.
It's a whole lot better than.
It's not
we
bigger
have
than
right
this, it's not as big as this room, but it's definitely bigger than what we have access to. Mhm.
Okay.
Alright, so is there any motion?
now. So moved.
All in
With
favor?
that.
Aye.
Alright, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:52.